Hello and welcome to another episode of It's the Vibe podcast. You are with your host, Megan. I hope you are so well. Today, I am talking about escapism and more specifically, escaping reality and when it helps versus when it hinders. So the inspo for this episode came from two sources, actually. The first one is the song Escapism. Like, if you haven't heard it, do yourself a favor. It is just so catchy. And the second source of inspiration was my excitement to face each day in my business instead of acting like an employee in my business and counting down to the weekend, so I could have a reason to stop and fill the weekends with things that would take my mind off of my business. So I thought on the episode today, I would do a dive into a topic that is both enchanting and elusive. I had to try to find two E words for this. And what is the thin line between a healthy break and unhealthy avoidance? So let's start on the neggy side of escapism. Now, you may recognize some of these, but my escapism looks like avoiding things, avoiding people, eating shitty food, drinking, shutting myself off of the world, not going to the gym, not looking at my phone, basically like living under a rock. That is my escapism. More so, like I will literally put on an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine or like a bunch of episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or I'll binge through scrolls, literally just to avoid any responsibility or anything that I had to do on that particular day. And obviously over time that compounds, right? So that's just like one day is like, okay, cool, I've just lost half an hour. And then 2 days, it may be like an hour and 3 days is, and it builds up so quick, especially when I am trying to do things like build a business and all of this. So then again, waiting and counting down for the weekends, like I was an employee of working for somebody at a job that I hated. Again, not great as a business owner or managing a business or any of those things. Short term, not ideal, but workable. Long term, obviously the snowball continues to go. Now, I am all for being delusional, right? But I was utterly insane if I thought that my business was going to grow or even maintain, for that matter, if I'd kept going. However, now that I have moved through that kind of situation and I wasn't trying to avoid any feelings, I wasn't trying to avoid any thoughts, I wasn't trying to avoid anything, and I was happily smashing through. So the flip side of this is that you can be smashing all of your goals, running headfirst into your avoidance list or your to-do list, and getting to bed of an evening and you indulge a little scroll sesh, right? Two very different energies. Indulging in a little bit of a scroll sesh because you've had a massive day versus trying to shut out any thought that may come into your head. Two very different energies, but they're literally the same thing. You're supposed to scrolling through Instagram. Same, right? So it's the same with the Sunday Netflix binge, right? You've smashed your week, you've prepped for your Sunday ahead, maybe you like to meal plan, maybe you've, whatever it is that you prep ahead for a new week, however that looks like for you. And then you decide, okay, look, you've got a couple of hours of, time, and you can use that with a big Netflix binge versus I don't want to face the world. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything after I finish work, for example. So I'm going to watch 3 shows of whatever I'm binging on Netflix. Right? Very, very different energies. Not to mention in terms of visualization, right? So fucking powerful if you want to manifest anything. Living in your dream world is so fun. It is so much fun because, again, our mind does not understand the difference between like make-believe and between real. So whatever we visualize in our mind, our brain thinks is actually happening. So you can get this super big kick of dopamine hit by thinking of all of the good things that you want for your life, right? And that is so powerful, again, to call into things that you want into your life. But living in your dream world is only going to get you so far. You got to take action to go to the next step. So here's a really good example, right? If you know, you know, but I am obsessed with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I have used it as an escape in an unhealthy and a healthy way, right? So my unhealthy way of using Brooklyn Nine-Nine as an escape is I don't want to be alone with my thoughts when I'm in bed. I will put it on until I fall asleep, and if I happen to wake up during the night and go straight back on again because I don't want to sit there tossing and turning, thinking about my life, I just want to go back to sleep, right? Versus my healthy way, I'm on the stair climb at the gym and the seconds feel like minutes and the minutes feel like hours. So I chuck on an epi, obviously my headphones are in, and it's like more than just music to me because I can like giggle along and I can do whatever. So I will chuck that on to distract myself from the feeling of the lactic acid building up in my poor legs, right? Exact same vice, very different energies, which is so fun. So I think that it all comes down to self-awareness. What are your motivations from seeking an escape, right? Are you using it to avoid something or as a healthy break? Like, it's like anything. So nothing is good or bad. It's just the energy and the intent behind it. So I intend to make 10 minutes on the stair climber feel as short as possible. Positive intent. Okay. Or I'm terrified of the thoughts going through my brain. So I need to escape and distract myself with something. Not so positive intent. In fact, you said it's pretty fucking negative. So my advice is to literally check the intent behind why you're escaping, and also to diversify. Everybody's escapes are very, very different, right? You might be able to lay there in a meditation. That is your escape. You might love to read a book, fiction, nonfiction. That's your escape. Like me, you might like to have a little cheeky scroll through reels, or I'm less a TikTok gal, or a reels gal, so judge away. But yeah, I can literally kill half hour to an hour in the blink of an eye by scrolling through Instagram. But typically when I do that, if I do that now, it is purely for the fact that I have created a space where I can just sit and do nothing. It's almost like intentional rest for me. And so I'm just looking through purely, like, probably mostly out of boredom, because it's really unnatural, not unnatural, but it's really like unlike me to like stop and not do anything. So you can become acclimatized to doing one thing. And again, I started to associate, and I really can identify this within myself now. So if it gets to the point where, like, for example, like last night, it was really stormy here and the weather was awful and Prada was literally losing her mind. So it was like in the middle of the night, I got woken up and I was tossing and turning. Because I've trained my body to not go back to sleep when my alarm goes off at 4 a.m., if it goes off typically anywhere from like midnight onwards, I'm awake and I'm up. So what I do is I can either put on sleep meditation and it takes me like an hour to get back to sleep, or literally I can put on one episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and like I'm out like a light. So it's just using your discernment in utilizing these different ways of relaxing our minds. So we all have different things. And again, like whether it's Brooklyn Nine-Nine, maybe it's a podcast, it's whatever it is. But if you mix up the things that you're doing, it kind of keeps your brain not kind of thinking, okay, cool, I've woken up for the third night this week in a row. I'm going to chuck on Brooklyn Nine-Nine because I know it's going to make me feel a certain way. It's going to give me what I need. If it comes to that, I literally will actually swap it around. I'll do something different because I'm like, no, it's almost like I'm waking up purely just to do that action. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this super quick episode with you because I think from these examples, you guys will get this. But escapism times mindfulness can be an amazing way to give your mind a rest. And perhaps in the case of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, for me, for example, give you a little bit of a giggle, and it can be a super valuable ally in navigating life's little challenges. So instead of, literally avoiding any either hard conversation or thoughts that are like may not be ideal or whatever that looks like, and trying to shut off the world and sit in your little vice, in your little bubble, in your whatever, and not worry about it, right? You can really embrace those positive aspects of escapism by just being super vigilant that it doesn't morph into a means of avoidance. So it's a really fine line that we're walking here. So again, your brain can get very used to the feel-good, chemicals that run through your body, the feel-good hormones that run through your body when you do things that feel good, right? It only makes sense. So whilst you are on this path of sort of like, you know what, I'm enjoying this, I'm reading this book, when you get like a really, really good book and then all of a sudden you like cannot put the fucking thing down and you have to read it until the end, or you have to read it to the next chapter or whatever, you can look at that and think, okay, I've just read 2 chapters of a book, or I've just literally tried to like throw myself into something that is going to remove me out of my reality because I don't want to live it. So a whole other spin-off of this podcast episode is around getting curious about your thoughts as opposed to judging them. So that is something else to talk on. But what I will encourage you to do, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, maybe I am trying to like, put things to the back of my mind and not think of it. just try and sit with it, because you'll be really surprised what actually comes up when you give these feelings the airtime. They might at the start seem like really scary or really icky or whatever, but like this has happened to me so many times. But when I've shone a light on them and I've allowed them to have the space, I'm allowed to, allowed them to take center stage. Yeah, okay, like they're a bit shit to begin with, but it goes away so much quicker. Instead of trying to avoid, that shit doesn't go away. It's like a snowball, actually, that only gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And again, whether it's you're avoiding a really awkward conversation, or you're avoiding going to the gym and you're just eating junk food instead, or you're doing this, right? It's like the saying, choose your hard now or choose your hard later. It's exactly the same concept. But the reason why the song Escapism actually really sparked the, I guess, idea for this episode is because how often do we hear things like, thank God it's Friday, or, it must be 5 o'clock somewhere if you crack open a beer or whatever. And, I really had to stop and ask myself why I was even feeling that way as a business owner. Like, I got everything I ever wanted, and I could create my schedule, I could do whatever, right? But I still wasn't happy. And why was that? So your external world is only going to change to a point until you change your internal world. So until you can sit there with those feelings that you are so desperately trying to escape, it's going to keep coming up. So it's best just to shine a light on the fucking things, get it open, get it out there. Stop avoiding them now, because they're only going to be worse later. And how often is it that you go to do something that seems really, really hard, really awful, really shit, really yuck or whatever, and then you just do it and you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. So the build up to it and the thought of it and like all of that mental energy. Remember, our mental energy is finite. We don't have an unlimited tap of mental energy in our 24 hours, right? That shit fucking runs out. So the more that you're draining your energy and wasting your energy on thinking of other things, mostly negative things, right? You're draining that energy, as opposed to using an escapism, as it were, to fill up your cup, or, again, because you smashed out your work day and you had half an hour, you're like, you know what? I just need to give my brain a break. We're going to go put an episode of Friends on, right? Totally different energies, totally different intent, exactly the same thing. It's like anything, honestly. It's like that example, which was like, once I heard it, like stuck in my head. I was like, the knife isn't, or like a gun isn't, good or bad. It just is, right? It's the intent behind it. It's the person behind it that's good or bad, right? It's going to take the positive or the negative action. So in that kind of context, just really think to make sure that whether it's advice or whether it's, things you do to kind of like calm down, to chill, to relax, or to do whatever, are positively affecting your future as well. So that is what I have for you today. Short, sharp, shiny episode. Go listen to the song. It'll stay in your life forever, live rent free in your head, so you're welcome. But I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.